Yesterday, I talked about sampajanya, clear comprehension, that is, noting in detail, mindfully. You can call sampajanya true blue yogi. If you are not true blue yogi, you cannot note everything in detail. So in this sampajanya, we learn eating mindfully. Yesterday, I explained all process of eating. I forgot to tell yesterday, because our yogis eat together, we also have to consider about our helpers. When you have private time, you can eat as mindful as you can, in detail noting all process of eating. Just you look at your meal until one spoonful of meal goes in your stomach. You can note as detailed as you can. But with group, sometimes it is not possible to note in details because we follow the schedule. That's why at least you should note when you chew the food and swallow the food. So I have to correct a bit. If you follow eating in details, won't finish in time. Today I would like to tell you a story, then explain with meditation. The Potthila Thera, the learned monk at the Buddha's time. He was the senior monk, very learned, what the Buddha taught, the teachings of the Buddha. He taught many bhikkhus, but didn't practice meditation. Because of his knowledge of the teachings of the Buddha, the dhamma, he was very proud. But he didn't practice meditation. The Buddha knew he didn't practice meditation. That's why he wanted him to mend his way. Whenever Potthila Thera came to see the Buddha called him Tosa Potthila, that is useless Potthila. He thought, I teach scriptures to the monks. The Buddha still called me Tosa, useless. The Buddha wants me to practice meditation. He understood. So one day, without telling anyone, he left monastery and went away and find out a monastery. Then he saw a monastery where 30 bhikkhus lived. He went to see the most senior monk, then pay his respect to the senior monks. Then he humbly requested senior monk to teach meditation. the most senior monk was Arhat, he also wanted Potthila Thera humble. That's why he disagreed. He didn't want to teach. You are learned monk. I cannot teach. So go to see another monk. Then he went to see another senior monk. The second senior monk also rejected when he requested to teach him about meditation. In this way, he saw one another. Eventually, he was sent to a youngest Samanera who was 7 years old, who was Arhat as well. This youngest Samanera told him, Venerable Sir, if you listen to me, I would teach, otherwise I won't, because you are learned monk. Immediately, Potthila Thera agreed with Samanera. Yes, Venerable Sir, I shall listen to you. So Samanera wanted to test him. If so, Venerable Sir, there is a lake over there. Go to the lake and go into the water. He immediately, the Potthila Thera immediately got up and go to the lake. He was about to go into the water. Samanera realized he would listen to me. Then the Samanera immediately called him, Venerable Sir, please come back. Then Potthila Thera immediately came back. So we can learn from the story. When we want to study, we have to listen the teacher's advice. The obedience is very important. If we do not obey, teacher also may feel unhappy or hurt. If a teacher says you should do this, we must follow his advice. Something like when we see a doctor, when the doctor gives treatment to us, we must listen to them. Otherwise, they won't give proper treatment because we do not listen to their advice. So, it is very obvious when we want to study from somebody, we must listen. Obedience is very important. So, Samanera realized Potthila Thera would follow his advice. That's why he accepted to be a teacher. Then he gave the instruction. His instruction was very easy, just a few words. Venerable Sir, you are learned monk, so I would give example. There is a termite hill which has 6 holes. A lizard go to the termite hill. If you want to catch this lizard, what should you do? Venerable Sir, now I understand. This is the instruction the Samanera gave him. 6 holes. A lizard go into the termite hill. If a person want to catch termite hill, lizard, what should he or she do? Or close the 5 holes, wait from the 1 hole, a lizard come out, then can catch. That is what we are always instructed. When we practice vipassana meditation, whatever arises from the 6 sense doors must be noted. So we must close the 5 doors. Chakku dwara, Sota dwara, Kana dwara, Jehwa dwara, Kaya dwara, the eyes door, ear door, nose door, tongue door, the body door. We must close. Watch from the 1 door at a door. This is the mind. So very easy instruction Samnira gave Potthila Thera. How do we close the doors? When we see something or somebody in our eyes, note seeing. When we hear something, note hearing. When we smell something, note smelling. When we are tasting, when we taste something, note tasting. When we touch something, note touching closely. In this way, we close the doors. Then the lizard, the defilements, we can catch it. If we do not note, if we are not aware of seeing object, defilements would arise. If defilements arise in our mind, we cannot still catch the defilement or lizard. If we hear the sound, we must note hearing closely. If we do not note hearing closely, we cannot catch the lizard. That is defilement. Noting, seeing, and hearing. I advise the new yogis, when we, at the beginning of the practice, when we see the images, we should not note for a long time, seeing. We cannot get concentration easily. Just note a few times. When we hear the sound, we should not note for a long time, hearing, because this is not the internal object. We just trying to develop our mindfulness. We won't get concentration easily. That's why we should pay close attention to the main object. We should pay more close attention to the main object, note it carefully. In this way, we can develop our mindfulness. Then we might have some quality of concentration. When we have some quality of concentration, when we see the images, we can note seeing patiently for some time. Then we might notice something in the seeing. We might be aware of something in the seeing. When we note hearing for some time patiently, we might notice something in the hearing. Also, we should note for some time patiently, not in a hurry, Just note a few minutes, a few seconds, then you note rising, falling. You should not do that. You should note carefully. When you develop concentration and mindfulness, if you are not a beginner, you should note closely. So when we smell something, note smelling mindfully. When we eat mindfully, all process of eating. Then when we touch something, note touching. So in this way, we close the 5 doors, watch from the one door. When we note seeing, just now I said, noting it closely, what should we see? What should we notice in the seeing? If we do not practice meditation, we look at freely, we enjoy looking or seeing, we listen freely, we are not aware of, then we can feel pleasant or unpleasant. When the image is pleasant, visible object is pleasant, we feel happy, or we may attach to it, we may want to have it, we may like it. Liking rises in our mind. When the image is disagreeable, maybe we ignore, or unhappy, maybe disappointment would arise in our mind. This is our way of life. We are enlightened ones, Puthojana's feeling. We are enlightened ones, live in the sensual pleasure world, karma power, sensual pleasure world. So we are happy living in the sensual pleasure world. So when we put our mind into the practice, or when we practice vipassana meditation, we do not have the ability to develop mindfulness. We haven't got concentration yet, so we haven't understood anything in the seeing. So we must note carefully. When we see, when we are noting the rising, falling very closely, thoughts arises. So in the thoughts, we see something or somebody in our thoughts. We must note it straight away. Note seeing closely. When we note seeing closely, the image would disappear. No more image in our thoughts. Thoughts disappear. So when we experience just seeing, our mind doesn't go beyond that. What beyond that? The Buddha taught us, Jakkhongja, Pateja, Rupeja, Upajati, Jakku Vijnana. Jakkhongja, Pateja, Rupeja, Upajati, Jakku Vijnana. Depending on eye and visible object, eye consciousness rises. Jakku Vijnana. Eye consciousness rises. With the coming together of these three, contact rises. Tena Sangati Paso. Coming together of these three, contact rises. So eye contact. Even though we close our eyes, in the thoughts we see the image. Or if we do not practice meditation also, when we look at, we can see something or somebody. So this is an eye contact, phassa. Sometimes the contact is very poor, the eyesight. When the eyesight is poor, what do? We use the glasses, magnify, so that the contact becomes very clear. So, phassa, contact arises. Phassa paccaya vedana. Depending on contact, feeling arises. Just now I said, we see something or somebody, we do not note seeing. If we do not note seeing, the eye contact, the visible object. This is a man, this is a woman, this is a things, goods, TV or whatever, car. We understand, we notice. So contact arises. Then we feel, we are not mindful. It is pleasant, good, beautiful, handsome. So this is a feeling. Very good. I like it. I like to have it. I like to possess it. It will be very good if I could get it. So, because we are not mindful. Vedana paccaya tanha. Depending on feeling, sensation, craving arises. Just now I have already mentioned. I like it because it's so beautiful. I like it. I like to have it because it's so good, pleasant. So, vedana paccaya tanha. Tanha is the feeling. Tanha is the feeling, defilement, the mild defilement. Mild defilement, not very strong. If we note it, it would disappear. Sometimes it will not disappear. The visible object is so good, so beautiful. We won't let it go easily. We put this visible object in our mind, then we cannot let it go. So the feeling is so strong, upadana, grasping, put it in our mind, grasping. So this is a defilements. Defilements defile our mind. Defile our minds. Our mind not very clear and not very pure. Not very pure. So how do we clear our mind? With noting. With noting. We have to note seeing. When we see something or somebody, straight away. If we could note seeing straight away, just seeing, no feeling, unpleasant or pleasant. If there is no pleasant or unpleasant, there is no attachment. So no attachment, no craving. If there is no craving, there is no grasping. Or grasping ceases, the wanting or craving ceases, feeling ceases. So in this way, we close the eyes door. Eyes door. It is very difficult. Saying is very easy. Practice is very difficult. What do you think? What do you think? Is it easy or difficult? Easy. Difficult. The Buddha's cousin brother, Nanda, the Buddha gave him his bowl. He didn't want to take it. As you know, the Buddha practiced Uruvela forest. How many years? 6 years. When he was 29, he left his family, Yasodhara, just newly born baby, Rahula, Then his country, Kapilavatthu, he left, practiced meditation in the Uruvela forest for 6 years. After 6 years, he attained enlightenment, became the Buddha. So, his father, King Suddhodana, wanted to see him very much because he was quite old, about 80 years old. He also loved his son, Siddhartha, very much. He wanted to see very much. That's why he sent his ministers, 1,000 ministers, to invite the Buddha to the Kapilavatthu. Nobody came back, went back to the Kapilavatthu. Then he thought it's so delayed. Then he sent another 1,000 ministers, 1,000 men. They also could not come back because when they met the Buddha, they listened to the teachings of the Buddha, then they became monks. In this way, he sent 9 times. At last, he sent Kaludai. Kaludai also became the monk, but could invite the Buddha to go back to his native country, Kapilavatthu. So the Buddha and his disciple monks went to Kapilavatthu. The king Suddhodana invited the Buddha and his disciples for lunch. After lunch, the Buddha gave his bowl to Nanda, the prince. The Nanda didn't want to take this bowl because he was about to marry his cousin sister, Janabhata Kalyani. She might have been so beautiful. That's why I call Rupa Nanda. He didn't want to take his bowl, but he did not say he didn't want to take this bowl. So the Buddha asked him, Nanda, you must follow me. The Buddha went back to the monastery. At that time, Rupa Nanda, Janabhata Kalyani, saw Nanda carrying the bowl and following the Buddha. She was so worried. When the Buddha left, the Rahula would be the inheritance. He would be the king. When the Rahula became Samanera, Nanda, it was Nanda's time. So, Rupa Nanda, Janabhata Kalyani, was so worried. She would know when Nanda followed the Buddha would ask him to become a monk. That's why she opened the door, then reminded, come back immediately. Honey, come back immediately. So this word hurt the Nanda's heart. You know, when he heard, the Rupa Nanda reminded him. That's why Anguttara Nikaya said, the voice of woman seizes the mind of a man. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the voices of woman seizes the mind of a man. The voice of a man seizes the mind of a woman. In the Anguttara Nikaya said. So he followed the Buddha. When they reached at the monastery, the Buddha asked Nanda, Nanda, don't you want to be a monk? He did not say no. He just simply said yes. But inside, he didn't want to be a monk. So he became a monk. He didn't practice meditation. He didn't study scriptures. His mind was so restless. because his mind went back to the palace and saw the Rupananda. The Rupananda reminded, echoed in his mind, please come back quickly, please come back quickly, honey, please come back quickly, echoed in his mind. According to the text, I say, in the text, you can exaggerate. So, he didn't practice meditation. So, if he was a practitioner, he would note hearing, or seeing. Now he didn't note seeing or hearing. So difficult. He didn't close his eye door. So we have to note seeing. When we see something or somebody, must note. If we do not note seeing, the feeling would arise. So now, the Nanda's mind, when the object, the visible object was so beautiful, Rupananda, but he feel unhappy because he knew he could not live together with Rupananda. That's why he feel unhappy. If he could note seeing, this kind of feeling won't arise in him. Now he didn't have the quality to note seeing or hearing. Whereas our yogis here, when they see the object, seeing object, visible object, you note seeing. When you note seeing closely, at the moment of noting, your mind is clear and pure, no defilements, no wanting, no attachment, no craving in your mind. So the mind is so clear and so pure. This is a quality of mindfulness. If you are not mindful, you also will be like Nanda. We will be like Nanda because we do not have the quality to be mindful on the seeing object. Now you have the quality to be mindful on the seeing, so you note it closely. When you note it closely, just seeing, the mind is pure at the moment. Sattanam Visuddhiya, for the purification of beings. So you have experienced. Then what do you notice more? The noting mind. Not only one time, seeing until the image disappears. Then you could see the image disappear. When you are noting the rising falling closely, there is no image. If you do not have the quality to note the rising falling, your mind goes away. So in the thoughts, you would see the object, the seeing object appears. When you note it, it disappears. So you note rising and disappearing. The noting mind also, when you note the image in the visible object, you note seeing. This noting, after noting, disappears. Then another noting arises, then you note seeing. In this way, you could notice the noting mind also rising and fading away. The object also rising and fading away. They are not together. They are separated. Noting is the one, the object is the other. You would distinguish noting. So whenever the image rises, you note seeing. If you could notice seeing, you could see the image disappear. Or you can understand mind and matter like this. Then you can, if you could note closely, even you could understand cause and effect and so on. So in this way, we have to close our eyes door. Note seeing. Then hearing. When we note hearing, when we hear the sound, we must note it closely. Note hearing. Note it closely. When we note hearing closely, the sound would disappear as you know the seeing. But as a beginner yogi, just now I said, pay close attention to the rising and falling of the abdomen. At the beginning of the Sutta, Satipatthana Sutta, we are told if we want to practice meditation, we must find out a secluded place, quiet place. Now it is very difficult to find a quiet place. There are so many sounds around us, car, aeroplane, birds, so many sounds. So if we know the rising and falling, at the same time we also hear the sounds, plane, flying, cars and birds calling. So if you note hearing, no end, you cannot concentrate. You cannot be mindful on your body and mind. Yes, true. Vipassana, whatever arises from the six sense doors, must be noted. Seeing, hearing, smelling, and so on. But we must pay close attention to our main object. If we could pay close attention to the main object, we can hear. Sometimes we might pay attention to the sound. If so, note hearing. Otherwise, we have to pay close attention. You might still remember ekayana, being alone. Being alone is yourself. You have to apply your mindfulness. If you apply your mindfulness, when your mindfulness is getting better, you can hear anything. That's why don't worry about the sounds. Do not know the sound immediately. Try to pay close attention to the main object. I have to stress to pay attention to the main object because we do not pay attention so much. There are so many things to understand in the rising and falling. If you could note the rising and falling closely for some time, it's easy to note seeing, it's easy to note hearing, it is easy to note smelling. You could notice clearly. As you understand the rising and falling clearly, you could notice in the seeing, just now I mentioned. Then you note hearing closely. Sotinja, Pateja, Satinja, Upajati, Sota Vinyana, the same thing, depending on ear sense and sound, the ear consciousness rises. Depending on ear consciousness, the contact rises. Depending on contact, the feeling rises. Depending on feeling, the craving rises. Depending on craving, the grasping rises. So if we do not note hearing, our mind goes beyond hearing, then attachment would arise. The sound is very beautiful. Sometimes in the thoughts we create sound, music. If you like music very much, you can easily hear the music in your thoughts. Then you you cannot note hearing. If you are, if you practice meditation ardently, you may be disappointed if you could not note hearing. When I was in Burma, I accompanied my teacher, Sayadaw U Pannathami, the lower Burma. We taught meditation, the 10 days retreat. So a young man, while he was practicing in the sitting meditation, he cried. So I reminded him, no, until you overcome or until you can control. So he said he could not control his mind. He cried very loud. So next day, when he came for interview, he said he heard a music in our country. I think yogis may know who went to Burma, the loudspeaker. They use loudspeaker very far away. Sometimes in the Sebangong forest hermitage also hear the music. So he heard the music. This music he liked very much. Then he said he noted hearing. He noted, but he could not note. That's why he got angry. Then he could not control his mind. He cried very loud. If you are crazy about the music, you may not control noting hearing. So we must note hearing. We must note. If we note hearing, the same thing, when you are noting hearing, the sound slowly fade away. You might notice. Sometimes when you are noting the hearing, the sound become more clearer. Sometimes you could see the separate words. If you note hearing, not only one solid word, you could realize there are separates in the words. In a word, you could notice. Also, if we do not notice hearing, the attachment would arise, craving would arise, then grasping would arise. We could not have the ability to note it. If we note it closely at the moment of noting hearing, our mind is pure and clear. Then we could see the voice rising and fading away, the noting rising and fading away. We could see clearly. In this way, we close our ear door. How many doors you have closed? 2 doors. Eyes and ear. Then we are instructed to note smelling. When we get smell, any kind of smell, good smell or bad smell, we must note smelling. We must note. The same way you know the seeing and hearing. So if I explain seeing and hearing, you would understand how to note smelling. Then tasting, yesterday I have explained. Then touching. When we touch, we must note touching, mindfully. If you note touching mindfully, you would notice very clearly. One day a yogi explained his experience. I never note touching, but I'm very mindful, note rising, falling, other things. Suddenly I realize when I use a napkin and clean my hand, the touching, the sensation is so clear. So noting it very, very, satisfying. Noting touching, very clear the sensations. That's why we have to practice respectfully. We're not just simply noting the object, note it closely. So if you respect noting, then you would notice certainly, very clearly. So in this way, the Potthila Thera, when he was instructed by Samanera, he practiced ardently and energetically. So the Buddha knew Potthila Thera was practicing ardently and energetically. That's why he encouraged with a stanza, Yoga we Jayate Puri. Yoga we Jayate Puri. Wisdom comes from meditation. Without meditation, wisdom is lost. So we have to understand wisdom, the insights, come from meditation, vipassana meditation, not samatha meditation. Samatha meditation, only one object. Then you have to note one object. When the mind went away, you must pull your mind back. Then you get concentration. Only you experience concentration. You cannot understand insight knowledges. You cannot understand the rising and fading away or changing unsatisfactoriness, not self. Practice vipassana meditation, you experience concentration as well as insight knowledges. That's why the Buddha taught us, Yoga we Jayate Puri. Wisdom comes from meditation. Without meditation, wisdom is lost. I do not explain yet how you experience insight knowledges. Just before end of the retreat, I will try to explain. Now I'm talking how to practice meditation. At the beginning of the retreat, I told the yogis, if you could tell what you notice, I will be very happy, because you could report completely, appearing, noting, and noticing. Noticing is the wisdom, insight. Noting is the mind. Appearing is the object. If you could practice correctly, we are happy enough, because the correct practice is very important. If you have the correct instruction, you can practice anywhere, then you could benefit. That's why till now I try to explain how to practice correctly. I have explained about the contemplation of the body, the contemplation of feelings. Now today is the contemplation of the dhamma, one part of the contemplation of the dhamma. I haven't explained yet contemplation of mindfulness. So in this way, the Potthila Thera, he attained arhataship so fast. Why he attained arhataship? Because he practiced ardently and energetically. He obeyed the teacher's advice. His teacher was Samanera, young Samanera, who was arhat. So our yogis also here, I see, practice diligently according to their health. They practice ardently and energetically. So today is enough. May you be well and happy. May you be able to practice meditation ardently and energetically. Then may you understand the dhamma clearly as they really are. Sayadaw U